so I've got my sunset painting up now. All right, so we got layer 10 done. So now we're going to do layer 11. So everybody ready? Yeah. You guys got it all up? Okay, so I'm gonna tap into my color picker and I'm going to pick this pink color at the end. I think we added these colors in last week. On the second row, that pink color. But I'm gonna take it over on my inner wheel, my inner circle. I'm gonna just bring it over a little bit to desaturate it. Over to the left a little, we'll desaturate the color. And then once I have that, I'm gonna go into my brush and I'm gonna pick the soft airbrush in the airbrushing section, the airbrushing group. Okay, and I'm gonna check my brush size and I've got it at about 20%. I'm gonna take the opacity down a little bit to maybe 80, in between 75 and 80%. Okay, we're just gonna do some kind of, that's a little lighter than I wanted. I'm gonna go back into the color wheel and I'm gonna bring it straight down, that color straight down on the inside wheel and darken this up a little bit. So I just brought my circle in, like down and in a little. And I just want, I'm gonna lower my opacity some more too. I want it to look like mist. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. So now I'm at size 42. Opacity is about 55%. Yeah, that's more like what I want. So I'm just doing some kind of light marks on here. Let me turn off my layers underneath. Let's see. Nope, not those. And so I've turned off a bunch of my stuff so you can see like kind of where I'm putting the color down, okay? And just kind of scribbling across the page. This is basically what we're drawing is mist to give you kind of the feel you're looking for. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to go into my layers panel and I'm going to add another layer. So either layer 11 or a layer 13. And then I'm going to go back into my colors, my color picker, and I'm going to come over and down, over to the left and down a little bit to get a little bit darker and more desaturated version of this color. Okay, and then I'm just going to do the same thing. And just add in some more mist. I'll turn my other layers back on so you can see what it's doing. So I can see what it's doing. I feel like that's too light. Sorry guys. Let me turn my layers back on. There we go. And now I can pick this color a little better. Okay, and then a little bit more mist. I'll lower my opacity a little bit more. I'm using the side of my pencil rather than the point. You can see my pencil is like on its, like I'm instead of going like this, I'm back like that and using the side of it to put this in here. And then I'm gonna go and pick my smudge tool. And I think I want, was it organic that had the clouds? What was it? Elements that had the clouds. So I'm going to go into elements and pick the clouds brush and just use that to kind of smudge out my mist a little. And then I'll go back to the layer below and do the same thing. So smudging out both layer 11 and 12. You see, it's nice and misty. So now we're going to add another layer. And this time we're going to go into our color picker and we're going to pick the second color on the top row of the Untitled palette.
The greenish?
The greenish color. And then we're going to go into our brush selections. And what brush did I use for this? That is a very good question. I think we're going to go into the inking group, and let's use the Tinderbox brush. And then we're going to, let me check the size of my brush. I've got it about a 50% and my opacity about 75%. Now we are going to, right about here on your canvas, you're gonna just start, oh, that's too big. I wanna go down in size to maybe a 20, between 20 and 25, down in opacity to 50%. And we're just gonna put like some marsh grass in here. There we go. And just do some little strokes. Make them irregular and think marsh grass, right? Okay, till you have something that looks a little bit like that. Okay, so now I'm going to stay on the same layer and I'm going to, first I'm going to smudge, but I don't want the clouds. I want the airbrushing group, and I'm going to do, let's try the soft blend under the airbrushing group. Okay. And let's check the size. I've got it at a 9%, lower the opacity down to about an 80%. And just kind of lightly blend out the bottom. And I'm pulling the color down instead of pushing up to blend it, okay? And then once you have that, you're going to go to your brush and you're going to switch over to the airbrushing group and do the same soft blend brush. So you have it for your smudge tool and your brush, okay? And we're just going to put, I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger, bring down my opacity. For the paintbrush, it's about 20%. Opacity is about 60%. Oh, that's too big.
And it's the Tinderbox too.
No, it's the soft blend. I was using the soft blend. I don't like it for this. I'm going to change it to soft brush under the airbrushing group. So that first for the paintbrush. For the, you want that first brush in the airbrushing group.
Okay.
Let me check this size. So now I have this at a 9% size, 65% opacity. Oh yeah, I like that better. So, and I'm just kind of putting in like it's a little hillock of marsh grass. And I'm just gonna pull this kind of across the entire bottom, okay? Streaky, you want it a little bit streaky. Until it looks a little like that. Okay, so now we're gonna take our blending brush and leaving it on that same soft blend setting. I'm just gonna go and soften this all up a little bit. It's already pretty soft, so it doesn't need a lot. But leave the detail, a lot of the detail on your grass. You want your grass to show through. We're gonna add a new layer. And we're going to keep the same color and go into our brushes and go up to sketching and pick that 6B pencil. Okay, everybody got that? So now we're going to make the little fence that goes behind the grass. So let me check my pencil size. What's that look like? I can't even see it. Okay, I've got it at 100% and I want it 100% opaque, and I'm going to test this out. That's a little big. I think I want it smaller. Maybe a little bit smaller. Okay, like that. So that is, I put it at a size 22, which looks tiny, but it's working for me. Okay, so now I'm just going to make some little vertical lines back behind my grass, like fence posts.
How did you get the grid up there?
The grid is just from my phone.
Oh, okay.
And don't do the snapping line thing where it makes it a straight line. You don't really necessarily want the fence posts straight. You know, they're organic, and so they might be tilted, or you know, they won't be perfectly straight. So, and just bring your little fence posts across to where you're happy with them. Happy little fence post. Channeling my inner Bob Ross. Okay, and once you have that, I'm going to take my brush size down to like a 6%. Yeah. And keeping it at full opacity, and I'm just gonna do a couple little wires between my fence posts. I don't like where that one hit. There we go. And you just really lightly, you don't even need to, like, you want more the suggestion of the wire than you do the actual wire. Yeah, I'm doing like 2. Like, you probably can't even see it. Like, I think you can barely see it up there. Like, I don't have a distinct line going from fence post to fence post. It would just be like where the light was catching it, right? We're gonna add a layer. And then I'm gonna change my brush to airbrushing to the medium brush. So the second one from the top, leaving the color on the color that we've had it on. And I'm going to, oops, I want that bigger. I'm going to turn down my opacity. I have my opacity about 50, oh, that changed. About 50%. My brush size is about 14%. Oh, that's too big. I want it a little smaller. Take it down to too small. About 10% for the brush size. And I'm just going to do some quick squiggles across the bottom. Squiggle, squiggle, squiggle. Okay. And then I'm going to go into my color picker and I'm going to choose that really dark color in the middle of the first row. Okay, this one right here.
Yeah.
I'm going to lower my opacity down to about 35%, and I'm going to put some of that on this layer as well. And just on this little bottom portion here. Okay. And once I have that, I'm going to go into my smudge tool and I'm going to change it to, I'm in materials, and I'm going to go with the Wattlebird brush. We'll see what that does. Okay, so let's see. I've got it set right now at a 5%. That may change. I have the opacity down to about 45%. And smudging. Oh yeah, this works. It is the wattle brush. And so I'm just kind of blending these two colors together in no specific way. I just don't want any harsh edges, and kind of pushing it up into the pink tones above it. Okay, so you want to get it looking something along the lines of that. Okay, I'm gonna add a layer, and I'm gonna tap the pencil or the brush tool, and what is that? I think I'm gonna choose this Mountain Ash. Careful how I say that. Under Organic, the Mountain Ash brush. That's hard to say. And let me see. Oh, that's cool. It's kind of fun to play with the size. That's cool. Let's see, I'm going to take it down to like 12, and I'm going to lower the opacity down to about a 70. And let's see if I like that. Oh, do it? Yeah, I like that. So I'm still got it on this dark color, and I'm just adding in some texture, and it just kind of looks like wood grain right now. It's kind of fun, but we're gonna smudge it after this with something different, and so we'll see what we get. We have a tree growing up in front of us. So I'm on, for my blending, my smudge tool, I'm on charcoal brush group, and I've got the burnt tree brush.
And that's what we're smudging with.
That's what you're gonna smudge with. Okay. And I have mine set at a like 10, and the opacity is all the way up. I'm gonna turn my opacity down though, because I don't want to lose all my texture. I've got it down to like, I don't know, let's do a 50%. Yeah. Okay, and I just want to smudge out some of these vertical lines to break them up, so it doesn't, it looks more like marsh grass than it does tree bark, right? Okay, so now it looks a little something like this. I'm going to go back onto my brush tool, and I'm going to do, let's see, is it sketching? And I'm going to stick with the 6B pencil. And I'm gonna increase the size of the 6B pencil to about 15% and full opacity. And I'm just gonna start adding in, oh, I want it bigger than that. Got it at 39%. I want it still bigger. That's too big. So I have it like 55% is the size, okay? And I'm just gonna start adding in like some little kind of grass clumps And it doesn't look so much like grass, it's just like darker areas is what you're going for. You can be pretty scribbly because we're gonna smudge it to smooth it out too. And just kind of framing the bottom a little bit with some darker, like vegetation is what it's gonna be. Maybe adding in a little bit more into your grass by your fence. Careful there because it gets pretty dark pretty fast. All the little tippy tappies. And maybe some horizontal lines in here too, like little clumps, like little ridges or, you know, divots or whatever. Just adding in a bunch of texture, okay? So it looks like that lovely mess. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to our smudge tool and I'm gonna keep it on this burnt tree. I'm gonna keep the settings the same and just go in here and smudge again. I'm gonna soften up this grass a little more and just smudge out, just soften some of the harsher lines that you have in here, but you don't wanna smudge out all of your texture you just put in. You just wanna kind of soften everything up just a little bit. So you're gonna add another layer and basically you're just gonna do the same thing where you go in with the 6B pencil and I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller. I'm gonna turn down the opacity down to about 75% and I'm just gonna do little, not clumps now, but just little pieces of grass, kind of like weeds and stuff like that, kind of different heights, growing all over this foreground. Because remember, things in the front are have more detail. Things closer to you will have more detail than things in the distance. And so you would be able to see the pieces of grass here in the foreground, and then the trees in the background would be less distinct. And then you can just kind of work it back and forth with the smudge tool and the 6B pencil until you're happy with how your foreground looks. Kind of adding details, softening up harsh lines, going back and forth between the two. And if you have to go down to the layer below to do a little bit more smudging, you can do that too. And you guys are done.